Decades ago, small towns across Minnesota found ways to celebrate history while also forging an identity by creating unique town celebrations and parades. Monaga celebrates St. Uro's victory over grasshoppers. Stillwater celebrates its logging past with lumberjack days, while Wabasha celebrates Grumpy Old Men Days in a tradition that only goes back to the 1990s. Mapleton celebrates its Scottish roots in a tradition that goes back to the 1800s, Robert Burns Night. With the town celebration also came the need for a visual representation of Mapleton, and thus the tradition of Miss Bonnie Lass was created. For the past 60 years, the crowning of Miss Bonnie Lass has been an integral part of Mapleton's celebration, but rather than just providing a boost of attendance, it has become a program of ambassadorship, a rite of passage, and an opportunity for cultural stewardship that has spanned generations. Local Mapleton historian Tim Soley, whose personal collection of local memorabilia and artifacts is enough to fill a basement, explains Mapleton's connection to the Scottish poet.
In 1856, 1857, there were a lot of Scottish settlers that came from New York. I think there was another group that came from Wisconsin. They arrived about the same time and settled. And there's this great story out there with Thomas Blair and his new bride and this awful trip they had getting back to the Bass Lake area, getting back to this area, and just had a terrible time getting here. They finally get there, and his wife is a good sport about it, and he wants to do something for his wife, and he says, well, let's celebrate. Let's have a party. Let's celebrate. Well, what can we celebrate? Well, how about Robert Burns? So it happened that his birthday that year fell on a Sunday, which didn't sit very well. So then they said, well, let's celebrate it on a Saturday. So for many, many years, that's why we had Robert Burns on the closest Saturday to his birthday.
While the Burns Night tradition thrived for decades at the local level, town celebrations expanded to displaying community pride by taking it on the road to local parades. With the rise of popularity in parades, Soley explains how the folks in Mapleton decided to invent a new tradition.
But in that 1965, 1966, I've read newspapers where there was a lot of apathy, I think, with regard to the Burns program. So I think attendance and interest was flagging a little bit, and they were looking for something to boost that a little bit. And they came up with the idea of Miss Bonnie Lass, which turned out to be a pretty clever way to get more people interested.
Jeff Annis, Mapleton's current mayor, grew up in a house with tartan patterned carpet. His parents, Paul and Audrey, helped start the Bonnie Lass tradition in Mapleton.
And then Mom was secretary of Burns Club for years. And again, I think between them and the Vobbles, Olga and Clarence, Clarence was the treasurer for many years. And then Olga, she was sort of that first person. And I think if you had to put a name with Miss Bonnie Lass, it would be Olga Wobble.
Jeannie McCabe, who hails from Scottish ancestry, learned how to manage the Miss Bonnie Lass program from a German.
And so sometimes you felt like you were the kindergartners, but Olga was very, very dedicated to this. And the thing that after I got to know her and the first year I worked with her, I said to her, how Scottish are you, Olga? She laughed at me and she said, I'm not Scottish at all. I'm German. And I went, what? She said, where do you think Olga comes from? And I went, oh, I guess I never thought about it. But here was this German lady just gung-ho about all this Scottish heritage. And my admiration for her grew because here she was in a community and she just adapted to it.
In the early days of Miss Bonnie Lass, the junior girls at Mapleton High School made the competition fierce and the honor prized. In the decades that followed, the tradition established by Miss Olga Wobble continued, and Deb Ireland had one of the more unique experiences as Miss Bonnie Lass.
I was Miss Bonnie Lass in 1971. As far as my early memories of Burns Night, I honestly can say I don't think I knew anything about it till I was probably a middle schooler. Then some of our friends were being out for Miss Bonnie Lass and knew more what was going on. I think my first Burns program was probably as a freshman. Went to see what was going on and prepare for our junior year, because at that time all of the girls went out for Bonnie Lass when they were juniors. It was just kind of a given.
In 1995, Deb's daughter Shannon also became Miss Bonnie Lass. Along with Deb and Shannon Ireland, Ellen Larson and her daughter Emily also became mother-daughter queens, something that Ireland now cherishes.
So I think to me it's actually probably special in ways that maybe it's not to other queens, just for the fact that our daughter Shannon was also crowned Miss Bonnie Lass. And I think it's just a good way to share the Scottish heritage, pass it on, and go from generation to generation so they know what it's about. So as a mother of two daughters, when they got close to their junior year, Shannon was all in. It wasn't even an afterthought that she would or would not go out for Miss Bonnie Lass. But after she was crowned, the year that Jill should go out, she decided it was too much pressure, and so she didn't want to get involved.
The pressures of family heritage is certainly something that Isabella, Elizabeth, and Alexandra Nelson understand well. With roots that go back to Thomas Blair and the first Burns Night celebration, Isabella had been immersed in her heritage since she was a child.
Our parents started taking us before we can even remember to the Burns Night shows. And then, at least for me, ever since I was young, I remember just the sound of the bagpipes. It just kind of fills you up. And we would go, and it was always exciting to see the different colored dresses and, kind of try to guess who was going to win from a young age. I like that dress. I think she's going to win, stuff like that.
After being crowned in January of 2020, Isabella saw the tradition of Miss Bonnie Lass survive almost 2 years of COVID. When her youngest sister Alexandra watched Isabella get crowned in the old school, she had no idea of the changes and pressures she'd soon face.
So I remember when Isabella was crowned, I was honestly kind of shocked, but I was super happy for her. She looked beautiful. And the next year, COVID had hit, and it was Elizabeth's turn. And everything was online. There wasn't even a crowd except for me and my family and the other contestants and their families. And she also won, which was super exciting. But immediately once she won, I got nervous, even though it was a year coming before I was supposed to compete. I was extremely nervous because I had a lot of pressure on me at that point. But yeah, I'm really proud of my sisters when they won. I was surprised.
From school consolidation to COVID, the Miss Bonnie Lass program has managed to continue the tradition through thick and thin. To bring the tradition to Gen Z candidates, two millennials, Veronica Bruckhoff and Megan Burr, have taken roles to ensure the future. For Bruckhoff, it's serving on the Queen's Committee.
Part of the role I had for many years was finding judges out of town, and we had some really fun judges that came in and had no idea about Mapleton, Burns, curling, any of it. So I would bring them in, we'd go out to eat before or after. If they came in the night before, we'd take them to the curling club and let them walk out on the ice during the bonspiel if we wanted to, and then go out afterwards. They'd come to the program. So that was a lot of fun working with those folks. All of us Queen's Committee, we do everything from trying to send out the advertisements of, registration, due dates, guidelines, trying to continue to increase the scholarships to get people interested in coming.
For Burr, her role is to preserve the history of the program.
To keep the Miss Bonnie Lass tradition alive, I have taken upon myself to scan the histories that are located at the Heritage Museum We had several Queens Committee members that had scrapbooked over the years, had written notes and things like that, starting with Olga and like passing on. Deb Ireland did a really good job of documenting for several years as well. And so those scrapbooks came to me. I thought there was no place better to hold them than at the museum, at the Mapleton Heritage Museum. And so I brought them up here, but I did take time to scan all those documents so we have those digital format. I found all the photos and was able to make those digitalized and upload those to our Facebook page. I have all the programs for Miss Bonnie Lass, I believe, as sent for the last 60 or 59 years.
Regardless of the cultural significance and the organizational efforts, for a tradition to bridge the generations, there has to be buy-in and enthusiasm for it. For the 1989 court of Rebecca Klein Otten, Tracy Walters Hurley, and Pam Brocker Steffel, the memories made during their years of service has been overshadowed by a bond that has lasted decades. Realizing that their court never created a scrapbook to share the Queen teas, the trio got together to reflect on their year and became Bonnie Lass ambassadors far beyond their reign.
All the things we've said about the experience itself were, of course, great, but I have to say what's been, for me, it's what's come afterwards since 2003. So I'll probably get a little emotional, but these are really important friendships, and I'm really grateful that we have reconnected and we share this, and it's really special.
Another important ambassador to come out of the Gen X generation is Brenda Walker Stoltzman, who, like Olga Vabel decades earlier, now works in the elementary.
So we had just recently become Maple River at that point. So it was really a fun time because we were introducing all our friends from Amboy, Good Thunder, and Minnesota Lake to the tradition of Burns Night and trying to get some of them to come and experience it. So I remember that being super fun because there were new faces there getting to experience it. At that time, Joanna and I were both teaching Scottish dance as well and dancing. So we were really, really busy on Burns Night, too busy to even be nervous about the Miss Bonnie Lass thing. So there were a lot of memories tied to that, like how proud we were of the dancers. And then the Bonnie Lass thing came and it's like, oh yeah, we have to go put our other dresses on and go do this. I continued to teach Scottish dance through college. So I was in college in Storm Lake, Iowa at Buena Vista, and I would drive home on Saturdays to teach dance because it was just, there's limited people to do it. So you just made that happen.
For members of the 59th Court of Miss Bonnie Lass, they're only beginning to realize the significance of such a tradition.
I think it's crazy. I never thought this day would come where I'd be part of the Bonnie Lass community.
We've been waiting, we've been dancing since first grade, and we have just watched every year after year of these people being crowned, and finally it's our turn, and we're really excited, and it's to be a part of this is so awesome.
Yeah. For local historian Tim Soley, the significance of continuing and preserving a tradition such as Miss Bonnie Lass has a significant purpose.
About a few years ago, I read this essay from a student, and it said we die twice. We die once when our heart stops beating, and we die when they quit saying our name. And that's what's so great about Mapleton, the Maple River Burns Club, the Heather Curling Club, is we keep saying the names. And one name that we keep saying is Robert Burns, but the other ones, there's so many people, Howisons and Dobies and Ellises and McGregors and Wills and Vobbles and on and on and on. And that goes for the curling club too. We don't forget the people that have come before us. So I think it's just great that we have this tradition and that we continue to honor our ancestors and honor Robert Burns as well.
This activity was made possible by an artist grant provided by the Prairie Lakes Regional Arts Council from funds provided by the McKnight Foundation.